We'll obviously be talking about the comments that have been splashed across the back and front pages of the sports sections this morning. That is the England defence coach, John Mitchell. What did he say, Eoin?
John Mitchell says Ireland, for me, are a side that, through their process, which is obviously a term used quite a lot regarding Ireland, of being a well-coached side, are resilient and will try to bore the shit out of us, basically. And ultimately, it will come down to a small piece of possession when you're not focused that can hurt you in a contest like this.
Yeah.
So we're just going to put England to sleep at the weekend and sneak on in and finish them off, which is a rather effective game plan, I guess.
Do you know what? I only read this last night, but in the build-up to the Rams and the New Orleans Saints, right? The game's on in the Superdome in the New Orleans Saints and in New Orleans, and it has a roof on it, right? And in the build-up to it, one of the Rams players was asked about whether or not the noise was going to be an issue, and he went, "Nah, that's not going to be a big deal for us at all." The Saints got that piece of video and played it in between every down.
No way, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so his face would come up and go, "Nah, it's not going to be a big deal for us at all." And the crowd would go completely mental.
That's incredible. So
I mean, it's genius.
They actually riled their own supporters up.
In the middle of the game, the head coach of the Rams is going, "Why the hell did he say that?" And you're like, okay, so finally, this stuff in the build-up to a match, they've found a way to make that matter. And I just wonder, is Joe Schmidt smart enough to make something out of John Mitchell saying, "We're boring. We're going to bore the shit out of them"?
But I wonder, is John Mitchell right? You know, I've been thinking this morning, have we been bored by Irish rugby over the past 12 months? And you know what? I think we have. I think it's been a pretty boring 12 months for Irish rugby. Like, you think about all the moments that have put me to sleep. Paris last year, Johnny Sexton's drop goal, pretty boring moment. Scoring 20 tries in last year's Six Nations, pretty boring moment. You know, Ireland slaloming through England, scoring 3 first-half tries to win the Grand Slam in Twickenham. It was a pretty boring moment, I think, from an Irish rugby perspective. Like watching Tyg Furlong become Wexford's answer to Jonah Lomu over the past couple of years. It's been pretty boring from an Irish rugby perspective, I think. Like Devon Toner grabbing Brodie Retallick and shoving him all the way back to Christchurch last year was extremely boring, I thought. Peter O'Mahony defying physics to grab that interception at the Aviva was extremely boring. You could see Jacob Stockdale there a moment ago when he chipped the entire All Blacks defence and finished them off in November. Also an extremely boring moment from an Irish rugby perspective. Like, you start to think, when was Irish rugby not boring? And I've been doing a lot of research this morning, and I really think, I can't remember this, but you might be able to educate me on this. I think it was 1996 was the last time Irish rugby wasn't boring, because we were so bad. We got the wooden spoon in 1996. Thanks mainly, I would say, to forwards coach John Mitchell, who was, I would like to think, but took a good part of the responsibility of Ireland being extremely exciting, but of course, getting the wooden spoon in 1996.
I mean, it is a bit mad, isn't it? The week of a game, somebody saying this stuff, like, he's not enough of a character in people's consciousness for them to go, "Oh yeah, okay, I'm really upset that you call me boring." It's like, if Eddie Jones had said it, right, you'd be like, "Oh, that little prick."
Nah, I like
it. With this, it's like, okay, that's interesting.
As in, it's kind of less deliberate?
Well, it's like, well, we're definitely going to shove that up your throat.
Yeah.
And pull it out your ass in the same movement, with your entrails flowing off the back of it.
Much like, well, that's something they've been doing voluntarily to themselves, says Courtney Laws. He's been shoveling food down his throat, he said, which is one of the other quotes that leaps off the back pages this morning. Not directly saying it, but to me, I'm reading Courtney Laws' quotes, and he says he's put on like a stone of weight over the last few months as a signifier to Johnny Sexton that I'm bigger, I'm badder, and I'm coming for you, Johnny.
Yeah.
And he's eaten so much food that he's put himself into that position.
Okay, all right, that's interesting. I mean, it is. Yeah, he's added more than a stone of muscle since November to ensure he's ready to impose himself in the physical confrontation. He's added a stone of muscle in 3 months. That's pretty impressive going.
If I eat as much as Courtney Laws, will I be able to put on a stone of muscle in the next month? Or could I go on the Courtney Laws diet and put on a stone of muscle?
In fairness to Courtney Laws, the percentage of 1 stone out of 19 versus, you know, it's like a lot more strenuous for you. Right. You might die.
You're getting my hopes up there.
You might get scurvy or something. Let's tell you what's coming up on the show over the course of the rest of the morning. Alan Quinn is going to join us around about 10 to 9 this morning. We'll take you through the sports pages with Darren. We'll talk about Dermot Connolly as well. Some interesting thoughts and maybe a bit of nuance to the Dermot Connolly conversation coming your way. And then there's a farce developing in Wexford Camogie. We'll talk about that around about 8:30 this morning. Hurling with Dai Regan around about 8:10, and we're going to take you through the sports pages right now. So, here is the back page of the Irish Independent. They'll try bore the shit out of us. S*****. England coach Mitchell slams Ireland's style of play as tensions mount ahead of Six Nations opener. Tensions mount. Our aim is to win the Six Nations, but it's Ireland's now. And Ireland are arguably the best team in the world. And Ireland, for me, are a side that, though being a well-coached side, are resilient. I mean, resilience, it's the worst famed praise you're ever going to get. Oh, yeah, Ireland, yeah, they keep the ball, yeah, but they're really boring.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time when we were boring and this would have rung true, right? Like 2.5 seasons ago.
As in, he's kind of missed the boat.
Yeah.
As in, a professional coach has failed to watch a team perform over the last 12 months.
Certainly, his information appears to be out of date.
Even though he's in the role a wet week, generally speaking. September, I think he was appointed as England manager. Clearly hasn't watched Ireland play.
When we won there was a championship we won a couple of years back and everybody's complaining that we won it without being very creative. No offloads, no line breaks. Remember that year?
Yeah, and that was also the real criticism of us after 2015. It wasn't just the idea of depth and the idea of creating numerous people in different positions. There was also huge question marks over Ireland's play. But I think that was more down to the fact that we were watching Argentina, who had a really nice style of play, and New Zealand's killing, say, France, wasn't it, in the or the quarter-final? Or the semi-final that year, with just numerous offloads, and it was like, why can't we do that?
Yeah, and it turns out we can. We probably need to do a bit more of it as well. Zebo shocked by cold, blunt Ireland exit. So Simon Zebo doing press yesterday. I knew what was going to happen, but I didn't think it would be as blunt and cold as it has been. I knew I was going, so it's not that big of a shock. But in terms of how blunt and cold, it was a little bit. I mean, do you want your international head coach to be cold and blunt, or do you want them to? Because they've got to make hard decisions. So is this an enhancer of Joe Schmidt's reputation? Is it just like we knew that he was cold and blunt, and there's like a private Joe Schmidt and a public Joe Schmidt, and that's how you get to be the best coach in the world?
Well, I'm sure there is a kind and caring element of Joe Schmidt in his professional capacity as well. I'm sure that's part of how he gets into the minds of some of the players, and some of the players probably are more stick people than carrot people. So I don't know, like sometimes if you're making tough decisions, you kind of wish you had a bit more of the cold, ruthless killer in you, and I'm sure Joe Schmidt has that cold and ruthless side in abundance. So yeah, like it all just paints a picture of a man that, once again, it seems as he's the guy you want on your side.
Ross silent on board limits. So this is about the FAI. Shane Ross has referred any questions about the FAI's decision to expand the amount of time that you can be a member of the board. So ultimately you could end up doing 14 years. Neymar injury boost United. We talked about that on the show yesterday. They've helpfully gone through the weights of the back three players, and England have definitely got the heaviest back three. But Jacob Stockdale is the second, third highest weight, 15 stone, 13 pounds. So he's nearly 16 stone, Stockdale. He's going to be good when he gets his man strength, isn't he? So the front cover of the Irish Examiner Sports section this morning, the Boer War. Great picture of John Mitchell. His head silhouetted there.
He went viral on Instagram recently, didn't he?
Did he? What did he do?
He was the most liked photo of all time. That egg.
What?
Did you not see that? The egg that was the most liked Instagram photo of all time. So John Mitchell does have another feather in his cap.
McGrath's Ulster doctrine, treat them as people first, player second. That's Mike Quirk's column today. Mike Quirk always worth reading as well. And the Wexford Camogie decision or story is covered in the Examiner too. We'll talk about that a little bit later on for you. The Irish Times, their sports section today. It's a Ronan O'Gara interview. O'Gara optimistic despite threat from Farrell and Pack Power. So they've got 2 pages of rugby preview, and they also have page GA and some previews for tonight's football as well. Fitzgerald says referees being put under undue pressure. So the Wexford manager says Ryan sending off had a massive bearing on the game. Yeah, we'll talk about the referees and those decisions a little bit later on with Dahi Regan and Jack Kennedy talking about Apple's Jade. No problem going back to 2 miles for the first time since losing to Irving in the 2016 fighting fifth, but runs over that distance in the BHP Insurance Irish Champion Hurdle on Saturday at the Dublin Racing Festival.
Back page of the Sun this morning is I can't face football. Cardiff boss could quit over Salah tragedy. Neil Warnock speaking ahead of their Arsenal game tonight about the tragedy of Emiliano Sala and the disappearance of the aircraft. So he's been saying that he's been considering leaving his role as manager of Cardiff City. United need trophies as well is the other story in the back of the Sun. Top four is not enough. Chelsea and Ole's way, they were drawn against each other in the next round of the FA Cup last night. Back page of the Mirror is back at a rate of knots. Keane makes swift return to the game as O'Neill's number 2 at former club Forest. And you've also got that John Mitchell story on the back page of the Mirror this morning. The Irish Daily Star goes with Ole's pop at Poch. Solskjaer insists United always wants silverware. I'm not sure if that's such a big pop. And Horan may be grilled on hike. This is one to keep an eye on this afternoon. So President John Horan is going in front of a Shannon committee. He's set to discuss the important role the GAA has played in the civic life in Ireland. It wouldn't be like senators to, try and make a big name for themselves by asking John Horan tough questions this afternoon. Popcorn out, Oireachtas.ie this afternoon to see the grilling, or maybe not a grilling that he does.
Well, really, is it not more likely... If only I could get some tickets from you.
Well, there is that.
No, we haven't forgotten the grilling. That's like the whatever that committee was. Was it the finance committee? Remember they gave them all of the various heads of the bodies were in, and they all took the time to talk long and hard about their own volunteer, and loath as they are to talk about their own lives. These politicians needed to remind us all about how great they were in their own lives, and then a few questions about tickets, jokes, but like not really jokes. Maria, it's like, I haven't asked you any questions about their finances or anything that's important, so I don't know.
More the same. Back page of the Herald is Roy's Forest Challenge. Keane and O'Neill reunited as City's Ground's dream team, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer there again saying that Manchester United are all about the trophies.
Is Roy Keane going to make it? Is it too late to make it?
As a solo manager?
Yeah.
Good question. The idea of him making it now as a solo manager due to what he does as an assistant manager, I would say is still a live possibility. But the thing is, what do they need to achieve at Nottingham Forest? And it's probably promotion, isn't it? Next season. Like, is it...
So Forest have had a massive churn of managers, right? So it looks like, the average length of time that you're going to get there, 10 months, say, right? Unless it goes well, in which case, if it goes well, you would hope that, so they're starting in January, they'll get the whole off-season, they'll get to start next season well. And say it goes well, say it goes perfectly, and they finish second, and they end up getting promoted next year, which would be a dream scenario, right? Like, they're going straight up to the Premier League then, and they're coming straight back down, unless there's a massive infusion of tens of millions, as we've seen, really. So and that's the point where they get fired the following Christmas, even though if they've taken the team up, more or less, that's like best case scenario. And how does he stand out? How does he establish himself here as somebody who has been centrally involved? Like, what happens here to turn Keane into a viable contender for a job the size of the Forest job, or the size of any of those championship clubs that you would now think of him as a contender for?
Is it not a case of just being the assistant manager at a team that's got promoted for the first time in a long, long time? Does that not bring your stock up? Like, I'm not saying that he's going to get a Premier League job, of course he's not. But if he's an assistant manager with Martin O'Neill and they end up getting promoted, granted it is best case scenario, he would have to be in the conversation for championship jobs, mid to lower table championship jobs. And I know that's back to where he started as a manager once again. That's where he picked Sunderland up. But I think he'd probably take that at a certain point when Ireland were nosediving as they did over the last 12 months.
Yeah.
Or do you think he really believes that he should be going into a Premier League managerial role? Like, I don't think he believes that, because... I
don't. I think that, it's very hard for you to establish yourself. It's not like the Ireland situation where there would be 3 press conferences and he's an Ireland legend and so he is going to draw media. How much media is he going to do for a start? Does he have to give up his punditry? Like, does Roy Keane disappear now and not become anybody who is seen except as part of the backroom team? Maybe. I don't know.
Like, being part of a backroom team in the Premier League isn't exactly a low-profile gig.
It's pretty low profile. I'm trying to think of the countless managers that have high-profile assistants. I'm like...
Like, you look at someone like Mike Phelan, kind of as a prolific enough assistant manager.
He's never going to get another head coaching job.
No, but he did. He did get that job. Granted, it was with Hull in the Championship and managed. But that's the level I'm saying that Roy Keane will get a job at.
He was coming from...
Like, an unbelievably high-powered job. Of course he was. But Roy Keane's coming from a much high-powered place in terms of the previous celebrity stature of him. Like I do think the fact that Roy Keane is one of the most famed Premier League players of all time will definitely count for something in terms of, it's not just, look at that anonymous guy on the bench. I think cameras will pan towards the bench a lot more often. He will kind of be in the spotlight a lot more often. Football Focus will ask to speak to Roy Keane just as much as they will sit down with Martin O'Neill. Like, granted, we're all speaking in hypotheticals here. This is all if they get to the Premier League. I'm not disagreeing with you that assistant manager in the Championship is not anywhere near that.
The most likely outcome is that they're not capable of breaking the habits of Forest's last 2 decades and somehow rescuing the club, because it's very difficult to do. Like, and it doesn't look like they're going to have the funds that would automatically give you an advantage. And even then, loads of teams have spent loads of money, and like you see Scott Hogan today on the verge of leaving Villa. Villa spent 9 million on him. They're not going to get anything back from him. Like, they're asking somebody to take his wages, and there's no reason why anybody would take his wages, because he'd one streak of goal scoring and that was it. So I don't know. It's possible that this is the end of the line for Keane and O'Neill unless they do something miraculous.
It seems that way. The front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section is "I'm still in love with cricket." It's Sir Everton Weeks on page 8. It's an exclusive. And shattered Warnock, I felt like quitting. Cardiff City manager admitting the Salah plane tragedy has left him unable to sleep and needing counselling, along with several of his players. And he's on the back page of The Guardian as well this morning. "The worst week of my career," he says. And the other story here is an exclusive by David Heitner saying Chelsea's transfer blues. Ban fears over more than 100 possible youth signing breaches. So Chelsea are set to hear from FIFA whether or not they're going to be banned from the transfer market. They're being investigated over potential rule breaches with regard to more than 100 foreign players being signed under the age of 18.
Okay, let's have a look at the Irish news for you this morning. So, Ronan McNamee, clarity needs brought up to the mark. That's him talking about the offensive mark. I mean, I guess there's no clarity possible really until they decide either to go with it or not to go with it, or to have it for a year or two, right? Or
is he talking about clarity with regards to the rule being brought in or not? Or is he talking about the clarity with regards to the 20-metre kicking?
Good question, Owen.
I'm not sure.
Only one of us fully read the Irish News back page this morning.
McNamee's quotes are actually very interesting this morning. I'm a big fan of sarcasm, and his sarcastic dig at Kerry, I must admit, is quite good. Like, if I can find it here, like while I'm looking for this, we might actually show you a couple of pictures from 2 of the great sideline cuts over the course of the weekend. We'll go to the Monaghan game first of all. Jack Brady with this particular effort.
We're just going to do the Kerry one first.
We're going to do the Kerry one first. Yeah. Sean O'Shea.
So here's Stephen McCarthy of Sportsfile with the shot of the weekend. Shot. This is pay attention, kids. This is how they made animation back in the day. And then you can just see the celebration. Yeah, it's just a loud guttural. Rah. It's not bad. You can see that the pitch is kind of cutting up, and it's winter turf. Will he be able to do it from the halfway line?
No. Yes, one day.
Will he? I mean, is that the 40?
That's the 40.
Like, it's good accuracy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an unbelievable effort. That's class. Brilliant shot as well.
Tommy was making the point that he thought Jack Brady from Cavan kicked a better one at the weekend in Cavan's defeat to Galway, closer into the goal, tighter angle outside of the right. I think the distance in that one gives it a bit of an edge. Sean O'Shea's, I think. Yeah,
being that far out. I have found the McNamee quotes that really jumped off the page to me this morning. He talks about Kerry's defensive system and says, it's normally the Ulster teams that supposedly go at it that way, but sure, it's probably quarterbacks, not sweepers, that they have playing. And I still think it probably was a surprise to see them playing like that, because you know how it's painted a different picture. Football down there compared to up here. We just had to adapt to it, and it took us a wee while longer than we wanted. To be fair, they did pack it out pretty well. It was very, very hard to break down. We tried to get the ball across a few times, and with a wayward kick pass here or there, you were intercepted and on the way back straight away. They played the game well, so that they sucked us in, dispossessed us, and then caught us on the counter-attack. They did that numerous times in the first half. So that's Ronan McNamee on Kerry's blanket defence, but no sweepers for Kerry, quarterbacks.
Yeah, it's right, isn't it?
Yeah, great quarterbacks. You know,
it's a crazy perception that everything that Kerry does, just beaming with glitter like a unicorn. Everything that Tyrone does is like dark and nasty and dangerous.
It's pretty accurate. It's the way the world is meant to be.
Yeah. The difference between a quarterback and a sweeper. What is the difference? One wears the Kerry jersey, one wears the Tyrone jersey.
To be fair, I don't know who's ever said that a sweeper is a quarterback.
Oh yeah, but sure isn't. Don't Dublin not have a sweeper? They play quarterback.
Keane O'Sullivan's a quarterback.
Exactly. Yeah.
Keane O'Sullivan should have a brush in his hand. He's that much of a sweeper. There's no way you can describe a sweeper as a quarterback, because they're not actually the creative influence behind any of the attacks, which is
it's not their job though. Like and I'm not even playing devil's advocate here, but it's not actually their job when they break stuff up to pass the ball forward, to set things in motion.
Yeah, well, they set Kieran Kilkenny in motion, who then tries to find the actual killer pass. You could describe Kieran Kilkenny's role as more quarterback-like than Keane O'Sullivan's. I don't think anybody, and this goes for Kerry as well, I don't think anybody who's playing as a sweeper can possibly be described as a quarterback. Stephen Cluxton, obviously, he's probably more of a quarterback than any of the sweepers are, and even then I'd have my doubts about describing any goalkeeper as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Like, I guess when Stephen Cluxton and Rory Beggan go over the top, then they're in full quarterback mode, because they can sometimes kickstart an attack. Beggan can go quarterback from the tee.
It's too random. It just feels like it's unstructured at that point. But I mean, I'd like to see them. It probably isn't unstructured. I'm sure they've got loads of set plays where it's like, okay, there's nobody ahead of you, go. But the point isn't to set an attack up. I don't know. Anyway.